Webcam microphone up close. Webcam microphone up close.
At the age of 19 in 1962, she was
See, but I have the files. I read this stuff at the National Archives, and I read these other things. I said to myself, how can that be possible? The brain, pistols and fondle slab of choice, I don't know when that was, the internet, professional wrestlers, and not just Ventura style. It doesn't matter where the information comes from as long as it's real. It's hard to get real information. Because seriously, they don't want you to have these two sources whenever I try to prove out one of these. It's not. If you expect your government to tell you the truth, you're going to be sadly disappointed on another one of these things.
Dear Lord, what a dirty, dirty old man, huh?
Really? You can't be serious. Is this really how you want things to be? Come on. More hooker, eruptions? Eruptions, whatever.
Like Dave Powers kind of...
Really?
Allegedly broadcast live from Pima Region 2. 3. Within the borders of the formerly united and currently occupied states of America, we bring you the Ochelli Effect.
I damn sure know I'm an original. We have all these situations. I'd love to know why it takes 50 years, for a 19-year-old girl to eventually get up to gumption to put these things out. Oh, the revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be televised. It is live on a Thursday night on UCY.TV radio. This is the Ochelli Effect. I'm your host, Chuck Ochelli. With me tonight, helping me out with the broadcast and participating in all this, because we're going to discuss things which are very near and dear to her heart as well, is Kim. Say hi to everybody, Kim.
Hello.
And we're going to have a guest joining us very shortly. Let me see if the computer will cooperate with me at all today, because it was giving me plenty of trouble before I went on. I gotta tell you. Let's see if we can get her in here. So she'll be joining me momentarily, and we're going to discuss vaccines and formula for babies and all that kind of good stuff. However, this does link to all of those wonderful environmental concerns that we touch on this show from time to time. And last Thursday, we started a discussion that I felt badly we didn't have enough time for. So tonight, we're going to do 2 hours about this. And Michelle, are you with me?
I am. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, great. I had an uncooperative computer, and I'm changing things around as I'm talking to you here so that Kim can hear you. She's with me, too.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Kim. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Okay. As we discussed the other night, off the air, she's pretty uncomfortable and all that. So, because we're ending the cycle here, as it were, with her carrying our soon-to-be son. So, why don't you give us a little introduction as to who you are and why it is that you even care about the topic of vaccines and formula and babies and child rearing and all of that.
Well, thank you. My name is Michelle. I kind of stumbled across your show, friend of a friend, and ever since then I've kind of made myself a little fixture around here. I'm a mother of a 6-year-old son that was diagnosed with profound autism at 2 years old. At 6 months old, he was vaccine injured by his DTaP vaccine. He became very ill, and it just kind of went downhill from there, and we'll explore this more during this show. Since then, I woke up, as many of us have, and I've learned a lot, from our health to the government to just everything, to our food, to the internet. There's just so much out there. And I like to tell people, I learned from the School of Hard Knocks. So by no means am I a doctor in any way. However, I've probably done more research than a lot of doctors I know. And I am a parent advocate. During the day, I work for my nonprofit that advocates for special needs individuals in schools. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get this party going.
All right. Well, yeah, and I'm so glad that you're, very upbeat about all this because, the way the attitude that we could easily take about it, and it's a dark subject. Okay, and let's begin with this. Special needs wise, there was, special needs wise, there was a lot of different definitions for that. Say when I was growing up, the term handicapped or whatever, it applied to a lot of things. Myself personally, I've said this on the air many times. I don't know if I made you aware of this, but I'm actually what they call visually impaired. So I had, sort of special circumstances trying to go through the regular school system and all that. But at that time, special education was a very small sort of segment of the population when it came to school children. This has changed a great deal in recent generations. We now are, confounded as much as I'd like to. I don't know. I stumble on this a little bit because I don't want to, make it sound like everyone has a problem, everyone is damaged. But you know what? The more evidence that piles up, it seems like there's a much, much larger population of individuals that had difficulty making their way, navigating through the school systems because of a wide array of problems. And
well, the biggest problem I found to be was the budget. And also parents that don't know. If you don't know what your child's rights are, the administration and the doctors in the school will kind of maybe bully the parent or not listen to them when they speak.
Oh.
So, yeah, that was my experience until I showed them what a mother bear is. And they listen. When you know what you're talking about, they will listen. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people that are unfamiliar. So hopefully we can familiarize some people with things they need to know for their children's well-being.
On that note, like I said, I do have a nonprofit during the day. Well, it goes into night. That works for special needs individuals. It's actually Coalition for the Rights of Disabled People, and I specifically run this Office of Special Education Proceedings. And what we do in that is we advocate for parents. And what's really cool is in Texas, where I live, you actually can go to an administrative hearing. You can go to due process without an attorney, and there are 8 advocates in Texas that are able to represent a client, and we are one of them. So anyways, on that note, a lot of it's money, what you said. A lot of it is money-based, and all of the things we're going to talk about today affect money and affect special needs. I mean, I think it's 1 in 3 kids now have some kind of disease or disability, and with it just growing like this, what is our next generation going to do? They're going to be broke.
Right.
We're broke now.
Not only broke, but I mean categorized as well, into these subclasses, as opposed to just being individuals. Which I have argued at some points here that a lot of this has to do with classification as well. There are some things that are, personality quirks that are now categorized as diseases. And this is a problem, but. There's also the very realistic pharmaceutical reality going on here as well.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my goodness.
Looked up this earlier today that before the child is 18 months old, I believe it was 21 or 22 actual injections.
You know what? It's funny you mentioned that. I actually, because I wanted to have a few things written down for you, I actually got the actual numbers on this just a little while ago. In 1940, a child had 4 shots before the age of 2. In 1980, a child had 8 shots before 2. In 2012, a child had 28 shots before 2. 28. And keep in mind, 1 shot can be a combination, like the MMR or the DTaP, where they have 3 different diseases all rolled into one. And, kids are getting 2, 3, 4. I've heard of kids getting 6 or 7 inoculations at one time. So their bodies are being bombarded with 13 different diseases, never mind the aluminum and the mercury and the fetal cells and the pig blood cells and the formaldehyde. And for the record, for our listeners, yes, there still is mercury in the flu vaccine. Look it up. I'm not lying and I'm not crazy. It's still there.
I never took the flu vaccine, whether I was pregnant or not.
Oh, that is the craziest crap I've ever heard, guys. Why would you tell a pregnant woman who's already having, immune system deficiencies as it is, because she's got a whole other being inside of her, why are you going to tell her to go and get a flu vaccine? Exactly. That is the most insane thing. We are putting the people already at risk even more at risk. They're telling babies and the elderly and pregnant women, when in reality they're the ones that are getting sick from the flu vaccine. One of my best friends, her mother died and was brought back. She got the flu vaccine. 10 minutes later, she flatlined. She was a relatively healthy 45-year-old woman. She's now paraplegic that was vaccine injured by the flu vaccine.
Oh, boy.
Mm. And generationally speaking, yeah, I know for sure this stuff changed because, at the time I was born, the MMR vaccine was actually relatively new. I was born in 1972. So that combo vaccine that they gave to me as a child was relatively new, like I said, and there were booster shots afterwards, but that was about it. There wasn't all this, these 26, 20-some-odd, depending on where you are, I guess. I don't know if it's a national standard, but it seems as though 20 is a conservative number. So let's just say 20 as opposed to the, 3 or 4 that I recall myself, from my own immunization records. You know what I mean?
I actually have the information right in front of me right now, and what I find funny is it's actually a national recommendation. It's a recommended vaccine schedule, and there's propaganda throughout the whole country that says, no, you have to do this, you have to get vaccines or you can't go to school. Pardon the French, and I hope you don't mind me saying this on your show, but it's bullshit. You can go to school without vaccinations. Every state has different laws, but the only state in our union that still requires you to be vaccinated is West Virginia. They're the only state. Otherwise, you can get religious, medical, or personal choice. And that's one of the things I like about Texas. I get a little form signed by a notary, which can be my banker, it can be anybody, and I turn it in. That's all I have to do. So, that there's propaganda in that by our school, by our government, which are the same thing, by everyone. So that's not true in itself. Now, on the vaccine schedule, I want to touch base on that real quick. Of course, it is recommended, dictated, whatever you'd like to say, by the CDC. So here's a fun fact. Dr. Paul Offit, he is one of the higher-ranking officials in the CDC. He is also a private doctor who developed the rotavirus vaccine.
Mm.
So, rotavirus is a stomach virus. It sucks. You get diarrhea, you puke, you feel like crap. It's rough, I'm not going to lie. But, modern medicine, you can come back from it. But now the rotavirus vaccine is a mandatory vaccine.
Right, they get it starting at 2 months, it says here.
Exactly. So here's my qualm, is this doctor that works for the CDC says that a vaccine he made has to be given. How is that not a conflict of interest? There's nothing objective about that whatsoever. If I was in charge, hell yes, I would be saying that people had to buy my product and people had to use what I'm saying. It's a monopoly of sorts. I mean, it's absurd.
If you worked in a restaurant, you'd want them to sell your specialty if you made money every time it got sold. This is the way of things. There's a couple of interesting things, and I was told by somebody in Tennessee, because I've been trying to look into this stuff and ask people what they've done about it, and I've been told that there are, sort of these deferment forms that you can go for that expire after a certain amount of time, and all you have to do is go down to your local city hall pretty much and acquire the forms to opt out of these vaccination programs. And that's all that you need signed in order to deal with when they tell you that there's a policy with your school or whatever to avoid going and to avoid being told you're not going to be admitted. But it's something that I don't know a great deal about, and I've had trouble getting my hands around it. I'm in North Carolina right now, and we're sorting through this, like what the legal reasons are for opting out of them. And what you can do. And, like I told you before, I mean, the birth is pretty much imminent at this point, so it's something that I have to consider, especially because I'll tell you what the most frightening thing is, it stands out to me very, very badly, is that on this this regimented form where they want to, bombard my child with, before they even have their entire neurological system completely developed, because a lot of people don't understand that it takes an infant when they're born up to the age of at least 18 months, and I've heard in other cases up to 24 months, to actually have their neurology fully intact. So you're bombarding an infant who doesn't have the full defenses of, like, say, a grown person from a neurological standpoint with all of these neurotoxins, in essence.
You hit the nail on the head.
And the trouble here, though, the real frightening one, though, I mean, let's just say for a moment, I'm convinced that, MMR, first of all, measles, mumps, and rubella. Okay. Rubella is, what, German measles anyhow. The mumps, all right, this is not a fun thing, and it can actually be deadly in small children and things like that, I understand. But, after vaccinating for generations, they're still talking about polio vaccines and all kinds of things like this. I'm wondering when the vaccination is supposed to wipe out the disease, first of all. And the next thing I'm wondering is, what it is that requires an infant to have to take a hepatitis B vaccine. Because unless they're getting tattooed, or they're going to go into prostitution before they can even crawl, I really don't see the need for it.
And there's no booster for it, when they would need it. Let's just say,
That's another curious thing on the schedule, is there's no booster for it. I would think that, theoretically speaking, let's just say this vaccine does what it's supposed to do and wasn't toxic, which I don't believe on the face of it, but let's just say that was true for a moment. Don't you think this would be a little more useful to a teenager as opposed to an infant?
You're right. You're completely right. And that's the thing, is you can read on I'm going to go back to the flu because I love to pick on a flu shot. You can go back and look on the flu vaccine box, and it says this vaccine has not been tested or proven to prevent the flu. They say it themselves. And just read a damn insert. That's all you have to do. And, you can see the fear in a doctor's eyes when you say, well, I'd like to see the vaccine insert. They get scared. Well, why do you want to see it? Well, wouldn't you want to see the ingredient list and the side effects for anything else that you would put into your body? Right. Of course you would. They give it to you for any other medication that you take, but not a vaccine, because vaccines are perfect and nothing can ever go wrong with them.
Yeah, it's just, but I'm still astounded at this Hep B deal, though.
Oh, yeah.
What is the logic for that? I mean, look, like you said.
But it protects them all the way through teenage and young adult life when they get it at birth?
Yeah, I don't understand what the science is there at all, to be honest with you.
It's skewed. It's terrible. It's pseudoscience. It's crap. I mean, you can actually get your titers done and see what you have natural immunity to. And I think that something that people always confuse, or they're just ignorant on, is there's a big difference between a vaccination and having immunity to something. Just because you've been vaccinated does not mean you have an immunity. And you can have an immunity to something without being vaccinated.
Right.
And that's what we have to do, is we have to build our natural immunities, because, we're vaccinating for these strains of these diseases that they're making in laboratories, and then we're getting different strains out in the wild, out in the world. I got sick 2 years ago on Christmas with type A and B flu. How the heck would I come in contact with two types of... I'm 28 years old. I'm young. I'm healthy, relatively. And there's no reason for me to catch two types of flu. Do you know what happened? I lived in we call them winter Texans here. People from Canada and the northern states come down here during the winter because it's warm. So we had a bunch of elderly winter Texans there that were all getting their flu shots. And when they had their flu shots, they were shedding. When someone gets a vaccine of a live virus, they're contagious for up to 3 weeks. And so I caught the flu from someone else, but I caught it from their flu vaccine, not from the actual flu. How screwed up is that?
Even more screwed up than that is, I think it was in 2007 I examined the flu vaccine because people were arguing with me about this, and even though I got to say I wasn't fully awake to the pharmaceutical end of all this stuff, and I wasn't completely aware of how much of a fraud a lot of this medicine is, in all honesty. I really was reticent, never wanted to take the flu shots, and they were being offered all over the place. They offer them in your pharmacy. No waiting, you can have a flu shot now, and of course Walmart has a pharmacy and everything else. So everywhere you go, you can get a flu shot now. So I started looking into these things, and I wanted to know what it was they were trying to vaccinate against. And when I looked at how they assembled the flu viruses, they projected, so many strains of flu based on these theoretical projections. And then if you backtrack, like say from 2001 to that time, and take a look at where the flu outbreaks actually were, what actually presented itself in the population, you find that most of the time they actually call it wrong anyway. So you're being immunized against flus that you're normally not going to be exposed to unless, as you said, you're immersed in a population that's been exposed by the vaccine. Again, by the flu shot. It almost screams like it's intentional. You know what I'm saying?
I think it is, but who am I? I'm just, little girl down in Texas. But there's no money in healthy people. Pharmaceutical does not. They don't create cures. They create customers.
Absolutely, that's really well said. They do create customers as opposed to cures, and it is sick care as opposed to health care. And there are people that also have problems, and I understand this. But I'm wondering, if you know anything, and I'm putting you on the spot here, I know, but when people have to participate in stuff like WIC and food programs or whatever else, like these types of assistance programs, in a lot of cases, they're often told that they'll lose their eligibility for this stuff, if they don't allow the vaccines to be introduced into their children. I'm not aware that they can do that exactly, but then again, I guess if you don't opt to cooperate with the program, I guess they can sort of turn against you.
Well, I can give you information locally with me. Well, Texas is pretty huge. Everything's local here, but they threaten. They threaten a lot, just as schools do. People are ignorant. They legitimately don't know that you can get an exemption, but they can threaten, but they can't take it away. And they can push you, but they cannot take away your benefits. So you can have Medicaid. You can have your food stamps, and you can have your WIC. WIC is going to be hard because that's all they do in that office. It's human pincushion in that office. But you can retain those benefits. You just have to stand firm. And I get a lot of people say, well, what do I say? What do I tell my doctor? You tell your doctor no. That's it. You don't owe them an explanation. You say, no, I don't want to vaccinate my child. It's a personal decision. And if it goes beyond that, and they insist, then it's time to find a new doctor.
Right.
People feel like they owe their doctor, like they're more worried about telling their doctor than their spouse, which is absurd. I mean, your doctor works for you, and that's something that we've lost in this day and time, too. I mean, we forget that we pay these doctors way too much money.
One way or another.
When your son was diagnosed, did you go through the various stages of emotions like anger and disbelief and tears and everything else that comes along with it? Because you're young.
I am. I had him young. I got pregnant on my 21st birthday, guys. I'm not going to lie. And and then I got married and the whole nine. So I had my son at 22. Well, right around 22. And I what really gets me is I questioned it. I talked to nurses that were friends, and I talked to people. I said, what about vaccines? What's this autism thing? What's going on? I don't understand it. And they're like, no, vaccines are safe. They're good. You're fine. I'm like, are you sure? I don't know a lot about it. And no, it's fine. I'm like, okay. So I did it. And but I still didn't feel quite right. So he would only get a shot or two at a time, and we'd spread them apart by a couple weeks. So I was like, it'll be a little safer. And so you know what that did is that just let me know exactly which vaccine he was injured by. And that would be his second dose of his DTaP, which when I hear vaccine injury, I hear two. I hear MMR and I hear DTaP. As a young child, I hear, flu, and then I also hear the HPV, the Gardasil vaccine for teenage girls. But as an infant, I hear a lot about DTaP and MMR. And of course, DTaP is diphtheria, tetanus, and pertussis, which are all curable illnesses that are very hard to get. Regardless, they're curable. Anyways, so back to your question, Kim. The hardest part of my life is that I know that I did that to my son. Even today, I can be upbeat as much as I want. I can help as many people as I want. But I made the choice to essentially kill part of my son because he is not the same boy that I gave birth to. If you look at pictures, you can see the lights turn out in his eyes. And that's a guilt that a lot of people don't understand. And they try to smooth it over. No, it's not your fault. Then they go, it's not vaccines. Kiss my ass. It's hard. It's something that I'll never let go of, even to this day. And I'm sure for the rest of my life, I know that I made a decision to vaccinate my child, and I hurt him. So there's a lot of guilt. As far as diagnosis, at first it completely surprised me because I was young, but I knew my son wasn't talking, and I didn't know why. He had all these medical issues that came up after his vaccine injury. He had a 105-degree fever. He was projectile vomiting. He became lethargic. Within a month, he became severely asthmatic. He was getting breathing treatments around the clock every 2 hours. He developed roseola several times. He developed gut issues. He was always vomiting. He never crawled. My son completely skipped that milestone. There's all these little things I missed. So there's a lot of there were physical vaccine injury issues. And then the autism was a bonus. So here we are, 14 to 16 months, about 16 months. 16 months, I'm telling my doctor, my kid's not talking. Why is he not saying any words? Doctor says, no, he's a little boy. Boys are delayed. They don't talk till later. He's fine. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, my boy, and I go back again, like, why isn't he talking? Why is Vincent not talking? Don't worry about it. And so I was being a pain in his butt, and he finally said, look, I'll get you a referral to an SLP, here you go. So I go, and I meet with this woman, I'm like, okay, I just go in kind of nonchalantly, and 30 minutes later, she looks at me, and she goes, I can't diagnose your son, but your son's probably autistic. And I'm just sitting there, I'm like, what? It's just, you hit the brick wall, just comes up out of nowhere, and you're going 90 miles an hour, just boom. That's the last thing you ever expect to hear. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, what do you mean? And I cried. I cried for a couple months. It was hard. I actually jumped on the pharma train. I did the antidepressants, and my husband actually left me about a month or two prior to that because he was having a lot of my son was having a lot of behaviors. So there was a lot going on, and now I don't want you to mistake sadness and mourning for complacency, because immediately we started doing therapy. Like, my kid was in so much therapy that I think I needed therapy. Like, we were going to therapy about 8 hours a day. And after that point, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I apologize for...
No, you're fine.
A part of the problem is they make you feel guilty for questioning their development. I was accused of comparing, at the time he was my foster son, to my daughter's development. And they said the same thing. Well, he's a little boy. That shouldn't matter that much. When he's 18 months old and he's not crawling and he doesn't turn his head when you call his name, or when my daughter is only 14 months ahead of him, and she was still a baby, and she would cry, he wouldn't turn his head. So I thought, well, maybe it's a hearing problem. Well, no, that wasn't it. I was just told I was comparing him to the development of, two little girls who were born healthy. Okay. Well, at 18 months old, his form of communication was standing there and pointing and grunting.
The grunt.
That's not, to me, that's not acceptable. And it took a lot of fighting, like I told you privately, that he wasn't my son at the time, so I couldn't. I was fighting a government system on top of the health professionals as well. So I would say he needed something, and then no, he doesn't need speech therapy. Well, yeah, he really does. So you're fighting, in that particular instance, you're fighting two brick walls: a government agency who speaks for him. I was just, his glorified babysitter, and health officials or doctors, whatever you want to call them, telling me that no, vaccines are fine. Let's, he's behind. We got to give him 6 to 8 shots. I couldn't fight it because technically I wasn't his mother at that time.
And just to kind of chime in about the common experiences here. I had a son with my first wife, and he was. I don't know how to describe this exactly on the air, but I got to tell you that he was probably the most smiling baby I've ever seen in my life. Like his entire head would smile when he recognized something or liked something when he was born. I mean, within weeks, this is what he was doing. Big, bright, expressive, all this kind of stuff. After the series of vaccines, though, I went through some of the same stuff you did, Michelle, where, he was projectile vomiting, he was irritable, unresponsive, all this kind of stuff. And in retrospect, I didn't realize it at the time, but if I mark exactly when that stuff started happening and exactly when it was going on, it was during those series of shots. Within 60 days, he was in a hospital and unable to consume his formula. And I know I shouldn't have been using the formula, but look, I didn't know any better in 2002. And he couldn't consume that. He couldn't consume water. Nothing was working right because he had these stomach issues, and then they found allergy issues, asthmatic issues, you name it. And it required serious intensive care and all these things just to get him back to being a baby that could eat. But ever more after that blitz of those first shots when he was an infant, he was never quite right, in my opinion. And today now we're looking at, he's going to be 12 this year, and he has problems that, I won't go into great detail on, but I mean, he is what they call on the spectrum of autism, and he does have, social issues, learning issues, communication issues, and to me, it seems as though there was an entire shift in his person at that time. Now, I obviously have not done the research that you have, but I'm just attesting to witnessing with my own eyes, watching a newborn turn based on the introduction of this crap. And that's all it is. It's really, I can understand the logic to some degree, but when you try and explain to people that this stuff does damage, I mean, they most often want to push back and pretty much say you're crazy and you're endangering other people. They tell you, look, your child's not vaccinated, so your kid can get my kid sick. Now, there's a little, now this may sound really ignorant on my part, and please correct me, but, theoretically, if my child is the only one who isn't vaccinated and all your kids have their vaccines and they are therefore protected in a prophylactic way against all of these diseases, what are you worried about? I wonder that, But back to the key issue, it doesn't obviously protect. It doesn't, vaccination does not equate with immunity. And, it's baffling to me, though, to try and even begin to discuss this with some people, to begin to get, some sort of exchange of ideas here as to what we should be doing, because in my mind, the more that they've increased the vaccinations, the more these kids have early development issues, and that's just obvious on the face of it. I mean, I don't know what you have to say about what I was saying there, but I wanted to just kind of get that out there because I couldn't remember if I told you that on the air or off the air. that I understood, and really feel for you, and also feel as though my son may have dodged a bullet here a bit, because he could be a lot worse off than he is. In just my estimation, again, just as his dad, and as somebody that's still involved in his life to some degree, I see that there are problems, there are frustrations for him personally, and in a lot of ways he is locked off from himself and from interacting with others in an honest way. And meanwhile, comparatively speaking, it's extremely mild compared to what you went through. But all I'm saying is that, varying degrees of damage may occur here, but it just seems to me as though there's no doubt that this all is just harmful.
We were talking about this in private after your last show. I always say that my son has environmentally caused autism. Yes, he's vaccine injured, but there were other causes as well. There were other things that affected him, and I can't pinpoint just one thing that caused his autism. That being said, I think a lot of these things are related, and I think it's almost a build-up effect, like a pyramid almost, and we all have a different genetic makeups. We all have different immunology, and some of us are affected differently than others. The way I imagine it is, some kids, they're okay with it, their bodies can handle it, or some might get a little sprinkle of ADHD, or one might get ADHD and then OCD, and then some of them, it just completely knocks down their wall, and then they're severely autistic and intellectually disabled, and ODD, and all, the full gamut, ADHD, OCD, they get everything, bipolar. It's just, they're all related, though. That's the thing. All of these disorders these children are having that are so related to each other. Because you can see a very severely ADHD child and a very mildly autistic child, and they're very similar. They're super similar. And it's all related, and they're all comorbidities. They're all involved. They're all intertwined.
Well, I tell you, every time I took my son to the neurologist or the psychiatrist, I was getting another 3-letter diagnosis. I'm like,
oh, yeah.
Well, are you just pulling these out of a hat or what? Because every single time I come here, you're telling me 3 more letters. Where I'm running to the library or going on the internet and pulling out books, whatever I had to do to figure out, all right, what do these 3 letters mean, and what do I need to do to provide my son with as I hate the word normal, but as normal of a childhood / adolescenthood, young adulthood that I possibly can.
Well, after all, we're trying to develop, and protect our children so that they can interact with the world around them, one way or another. That's generally our goal as parents. And the thing is this, when you're overwhelmed by this alphabet soup, to me, it all just sort of boils down to one word, which is damage. There's damage being done, and you're also right, though, to make sure that you throw in that it's not just the vaccines. I know I've been focusing on that so far, but and by the way, I do apologize in case you guys are hearing a couple of pops or bangs now and then. We got some serious thunder and lightning over here, so we may hear a little bit of noise on the broadcast tonight. Sorry, but the thing is this: when you combine this, weakening of the immune system, this damage to the endocrine system, with, the genetically modified organisms in the food, the poor air quality, we can get into the chemtrails or not. Let's just talk poor air quality for whatever the causality is. So when you have improper diet, poisoned water, poison air, in addition to this stuff ripping your systems apart inside, it is no wonder that there is various levels of damage, because as we note, everyone is different. So people do react and metabolize one way or another all of these inputs, let's just say, from their environment. So, to define that, I would like to talk about, how this relates also to the food and the air and everything else. Because look, another thing that's really prevalent here is let's just leave the the learning disabled or whatever diagnoses aside for a second. I know we'll get back to it. But, think about the proliferation of asthmatic children. I look back to when I was growing up. You might find, 2 kids in your school that were really asthmatic, and most of the times they had sort of nervous conditions that, really I think it was more like panic disorder, but it physically manifested itself and gave them these bronchial issues. But regardless of my opinion on that, if you just think about the amount of asthmatics from when you were growing up to now, this is, again, a huge spike. Air quality is just as important as the food and as the vaccines. I know you have opinions on this too, but I just wanted to get that out there as well. And believe me, I'm not done on the vaccine thing. So, I don't know what you'd like to say about that, Michelle, but, please, by all means.
I have to find out where to begin. For once you left me speechless. Wow. Well, let me start with I know you were talking about neurotoxins earlier, and I was actually looking at something right now. There are other options, and I hate to go back to vaccinations. I know we're moving on to food. You can, if you insist on vaccinating your child, for any of your listeners that do, at least look into homeopathic vaccines. Number 1, they're greener. Number 2, detox. Give your child an Epsom salt bath. Increase the vitamin C. Increase the D3. Keep the fluids coming. And do not give that child Tylenol. Throw your Tylenol out. Do not ever give your child Tylenol. Oh, my God, don't do that. Now, food. Oh, my goodness. The thing about food is it's affecting your child before your child's ever conceived. Because they're soaking up from mom. And, man, when I was pregnant, you know what I ate? I ate chocolate donuts. Man, I love chocolate donuts. And I bet they were full of arsenic and GMOs, and there probably wasn't even any chocolate in them. But, man, I ate them. And here I am 6 years later still trying to figure out where all those chocolate donuts are still hiding on me. But, we can do so much by changing our diet. And it carries over to our kids. I mean, my goodness, we have been through so much, physically and chemically. We still had vaccines, though they were less, they still were toxic. Everything in our environment, to everything, oh my goodness, when you're in labor, just that barrier from you to the child, Pitocin, I was given Pitocin, which is help to assist in accelerating labor, excuse me.
Like promotes contractions and things. It's supposed to help if you're being induced to speed the process along, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I had that with my second daughter.
And it did. I was in labor for 2 days, and I was just not dilating, and so they gave me Pitocin. So I started having crazy contractions within a couple hours. My water broke, and I still didn't dilate. So my ass got wheeled to the OR, and I had a C-section, and in doing so, I also had an epidural. And how can anyone believe that doesn't transfer over to your child?
I just saw a movie about it today. I had to go.
But see, here's the thing: is it's kind of a necessary evil. Like here I am, thinking about what I'm going to do in my future when I have my next son or my next child. You do have options. You do have VBAC. But it's definitely something that you have to consider. And there's just so many opportunities to be transferred to our kids. And I know I completely went off of what you were discussing, Chuck, and I apologize.
No, it's okay. No, it's okay, because you know what? I have no problem with this, and in fact, if you want to keep going on the vaccine thing, I have no problem.
I have to enjoy this. It's taboo in any other circle, so...
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is I'm just glad that we're able to have this kind of open discussion and let it out for the listeners, basically. So, I'm hoping that we're learning a little bit, and we're also just bouncing things off of each other. getting a gauge, sort of, to see. It's also good every once in a while to hear from somebody else. Look, I'm not exactly entirely crazy here. When it comes to the delivery of pain medicine during labor, see, I'm a man, so I don't feel as though I'm very qualified to discuss this, but I'll throw this out there. Sometimes I think that you have to weigh your options because it's a matter of tolerance, it's a matter of what you can deal with, and really, honestly, putting the mother through hell is also damaging to the child as well. So sometimes I think that that stuff has to be weighed on a person-by-person basis, to see what you want to deal with. And I mean, there are other options like I'm trying to think. I guess I think they still use Dilaudid. I'm not sure. Injectable also as pain relief during delivery. I think. I'm not sure. I know they don't use morphine or anything like that. But there's a couple other... Demerol is the other drug I was thinking of. Yeah. Demerol, I know that's one of the ones that they'll stick you in the butt with while you're trying to drop a baby. And, even that, which, is seen as less invasive as an epidural, I mean, there are plenty of risks for transference depending on how long you go, how bloody your delivery is, and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's the kind of thing that needs to be weighed on a person-by-person basis. And sometimes, although, the pharmaceuticals, again, are mostly harmful, sometimes you may have to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this is the kind of thing that I know Kim is weighing too. But please, talk about the epidural and the transference and stuff like that, what you learned about that.
Oh, see, I'm a little bit ignorant on that, I'm going to be honest. I can tell you what I know about C-section versus vaginal birth, and the very basic health benefits, in that as a child is pushed to the vaginal canal, it helps to push the fluid out of their lungs and out of their body, honestly, out of their mouth. So respiratory issues in a cesarean child are not uncommon, actually. I wish I had more information regarding epidurals, and it's a kind of a recent, I think, decision that I'm going to be having more kids someday, so I have to get back into the swing of things, and I'm learning about home birth and water birth and all those good things.
Right, which also have options depending on the individual.
Yes, definitely.
I had somebody criticize me a little bit because they said that that I should try to convince Kim to give birth at home and not and avoid the hospital altogether and all that. And I said, look, that is not my decision to even begin to try and influence, because I'm not the one who's going to have to do it. And personally, I know it seems strange because I don't really want to support the idea of an appeal to authority to doctors on any level. But at the same time, I feel as though if something does go wrong, they may be more competent to assist than myself, regarding this. So therefore, I'm in support of whatever she decides to do here. And we've elected to obviously go through a hospital and stuff like that.
Well, I'm a high risk because of my age. I'm 43. So
well, I'm just going to give it that he's a smart man because he's letting you decide. You're a good man.
It's not a matter of letting anything.
There you go. Well, see? There's a reason. There you go.
If I was 22 years old, yeah, I would consider having a baby at home. But, I'm 43, so the chances of something going wrong, can happen in any pregnancy, but I am worried because of my age. I want that, the baby comes out and he's not breathing. I want somebody to be able to take him and help him. I won't have that at home.
Yeah, and
you know what? I agree. And
regarding
go ahead. I apologize.
Sorry, but regarding the C-section thing, I got to say this too: is that I just described the whole thing with my son. He was also a C-section, and that was one of the first things that I was told is expect that he's going to have some respiratory problems at first. It'll go away, of course, they said, but he's going to have more fluid, and it's going to rattle when he breathes, and all that kind of stuff. Seemed pretty logical to me. But it seems to me, again, we have a consistent thing that I keep hearing from other parents where the more C-sections you have, the more of these breathing issues you have.
Well, he still has asthma and
Well, that's
allergies.
That's the thing. The kid has carried it now. He's carried this thing all the way through his life. And I'm hoping that they say that you can grow out of this. But then again, like I said before, a generation ago, 2 generations ago, this was not even an issue. So it just, I don't know. You know what I mean? It's one of those things that I feel a guilt about it because I kind of didn't put my input into that. And just sort of trusted the doctors wholesale, and I feel as though I made a serious mistake and allowed my son to become injured, just like you were saying. Again, you're dealing with a more severe injury with Vincent than I am with Charles, but it's still there. We never really want to imagine a scratch on our babies. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So. It's not even a matter of the degree. It's still it comes from the same place, if you know what I'm saying, Michelle. I don't know if I'm making any sense to you here, but
no, you make perfect sense. You know what I do, Chuck? You know how I kind of handle it, I guess, is you did what you were supposed to do. You did what you thought you were supposed to do. You talked to your doctors. You asked questions, and they lied. You did what you were taught to do. And that doesn't fix it, and that doesn't take away our guilt. But I wasn't some deadbeat mother that just, was feeding my kid crack or something. I asked the questions. I did limited research, but I was concerned, and I just didn't push far enough. So, it's hard. It's really hard because the autism community is a really big one, especially the biomed one. And I think everyone has those days, especially when your child's having a hard day and you have that guilt. It's exhausting. It's very exhausting. It is very, very exhausting.
Doing it all by yourself, you had said?
Yes. I've been separated from my ex-husband for 5.5 years.
Do you have support system set up for yourself?
My mother actually lives with me. I moved her in with me because it was difficult. With all of his therapies, and then I was working. I was at the point that I was sleeping maybe 2 hours a night, and it was a very hard time in my life. But it was very beneficial because my son is where he's at now because of all the hard work that he put in, right. and my dedication to him too. And something I didn't touch base on earlier is you asked how I felt. So I did hit that depression, and I did hit that sadness, and it's a time of mourning. You mourn the child that you thought that you had, and a lot of people that have lost children kind of look at you like you're a jerk. And I've had people that miscarried, or even people that just kind of are on the outside and say that it's nothing like that. My son's probably never going to get married. My son probably won't move out from my home. I'm never going to be a grandmother. He's going to be that little warm, fuzzy story that you read on Facebook about a kid that got voted for prom king because everybody felt bad for him. You mourn for what you thought your child would have,
right?
And
the dreams that you had for him before he was born.
Of course, you never. I recently went to an appointment for services which are a joke, by the way.
Yeah.
But I went and he had evaluations, and they actually did an IQ test on my son. And for those of you that don't know, another comorbidity of autism that's actually underdiagnosed is intellectual disability, which is formerly known as mental retardation, because all of the assholes of the world ruined the word retard and decided to make it their own. We had to get a new diagnosis. So now it's intellectual disability. But Vincent is intellectually disabled. He has an IQ of 69. And that's hard. When my son's IQ is, it's less than half of mine. And it's overwhelming. So I'm talking to this psychologist, and I'm like, so what can I expect? What level of independent living should I expect from him? And he says, well, he might be able to work at McDonald's, but probably not. What the the hell? I mean, as parents, when you give birth to your child and you're sitting there and you're looking at them and they're perfect and you're counting their toes and you're smelling their baby skin and you know, just all that warm, fuzzy stuff, you're not thinking, man, I sure hope my kid can wash toilets at McDonald's.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you deal with that morning. And moving on. So I had that morning, and then he finally got his official diagnosis on his second birthday. His autism was discovered at 16 months, and he was diagnosed on his second birthday. And at that point, I was empowered. I had the diagnosis I needed to get him the treatment he needed, and that was it. That's when Mama Warrior came out, and that's when it was time to kick butt and take names.
Right.
Well,
And
you know what I'm curious about, and I'm really grateful that you're sharing this story with us. I got to tell you, because I think it's very informative, and I think it is a huge warning sign for people to be more careful, you know, and to try and educate themselves ahead of time. Unlike what you did and what I did here. You know, we weren't aware. We thought we were doing the right thing. We may have had questions, but we kind of figured that, you know, those who had studied these issues might have a better grasp on them and might be somewhat trustworthy because they were in the position of caregiving. You know, and this is a terrible betrayal, obviously, but, you know, but again, I just want you to know that I really appreciate that you're, you know, that you're allowing us to share in this story, first of all. But in addition, you talked to me a few times about detoxing this kind of stuff, and you know, I mean, I'm not one for asking for, you know, sort of quick remedies on anything or anything like that. And obviously, you know, some damage is going to remain regardless of what we do, because some of these things are absolutely irreparable. And this is why I think people need to educate themselves quite a bit more than they have. I'm trying to, despite what I've done in the past. I've got to tell you, you know, like you said, you know, you learn from the school of hard knocks, and that's a hell of a hard knock. I mean, when my children were going to be born, I was most worried about the condition of their eyesight because of my condition. Thankfully, it has skipped them pretty much. My daughter has some issues, but is not like me. My son's eyesight is fine, but these other things that have happened here, you know, just really grabbed me at my gut and really hurt me. And not just for my children, my potential child, you know, my soon-to-be-born child, but I mean for all these kids that, you know, that have to experience life through this lens. And it is so horrendously unfair and so just insidious. I don't know what other word to use for it. And it really makes me question the entire industry. You know, healthcare, pharmaceuticals, everything. I mean, even more than I already did. The more I hear these things, the more I see these things. And there is a great deal to be said, though, for the mourning over a child's potential, for the mourning over the high hopes that you have, you know, when they're soon to arrive, and all of that. And but I do want to touch on the actual, you know, possibilities of detoxing. You know, trying to get back to a more natural state for these kids, even if we have made the mistake of introducing these toxins into them. You know, these things that you learned over time, I would like to touch on that too, because we've already killed an hour here, and I want to make sure that we get to some of that stuff as well.
Yes, you can definitely detox. We can all stand a detox because we've all got some heavy metals going on, I'm sure. But you know, the biggest game changer for my son, and even for me, honestly, has been a change in diet. Autistic children or children on the spectrum, they all typically eat the same thing: chicken nuggets, french fries, cheeseburgers.
Macaroni and cheese.
Macaroni and cheese, there you go, that's another one. Very starchy, very processed, very terrible things. And they're addicted to it. It's like a drug. It's what they want to eat all the time.
Right, they practically won't eat anything else.
It's true.
Yeah.
And so through social media one day, I ended up with a friend, and I ended up at a crazy conference, and it was the greatest thing I've ever done. And so someone said, look, you need to get your kid on the gluten-free, dairy-free diet. Everything you've told me, he sounds like he has allergies, just try it. And I'm like, no, it's terrible. It's going to be so hard. I can't do it. And she goes, okay, look, your kid doesn't talk. He's hitting his head on a wall. What do you have to lose? Take away some milk, take away the bread, and if you don't like it after a month, then go ahead and give him his crap again. But what do you have to lose? And I said, you know what? You're right. All right.
Sound logic. Yeah.
And that's what I tell people, too. I'm like, you're good. Of all the things you could do in the world, change your kid's diet and make him some gluten-free chicken nuggets, and that can change so much. So I did it. I got the almond milk. I made my own chicken nuggets. It was a little bit of a process, but we did it in 2 weeks. I took away all dairy at first because that's the easiest step, is to take away dairy, and then after that I took away gluten. Now the trick to taking away gluten, which is the protein in wheat, is everything that's processed pretty much has gluten. It's unavoidable. It's everywhere. So in doing so, you kind of get back to a more natural, holistic diet. But I did that, and then within 3 weeks of removing gluten, dairy, artificial dyes, most soy, my son started talking. He went from being completely nonverbal, grunting, cannot communicate, like he couldn't even point at something if he wanted it, to saying 3-word phrases, from changing his chicken nuggets.
And how long did it take before you saw that happen?
3 weeks.
3 weeks, wow. Wow.
Literally 3 weeks. And not every child has that quick of a improvement, but I've heard it so many times. And even myself, I'm semi-neurotypical is what they claim. I even benefit from a gluten-free diet. Like, gluten is crap. The wheat we eat now is all genetically modified. Our bodies are not meant to eat corn. They're not meant to digest wheat. There's a reason that we feel like crap after we eat it. The term wheat belly is a truth. And I love bread. I'm Italian. Oh, God, I love bread and pasta and cheese. And being paleo is the hardest thing in the world. But it makes a difference. Right. So on that note, diet was the initial change for us. Huge change. After that, I suggest you get on a probiotic. It's been found. I wish I had a number in front of me. Well, okay, 70% of children or individuals with autism have a gut-related disorder. 70%. So their gut flora is all out of whack. Everyone's gut flora is all out of whack. Take a good probiotic, and it'll help balance you out. And now, a lot of individuals have gut damage, stomach damage, intestinal damage, and this could be from a variety of reasons. Some from pharmaceuticals, some from GMOs. Because as I'm sure your listeners know, BT corn was developed to deteriorate the intestinal tract and stomach of pests.
Right.
But it doesn't do it to humans. It just does it to animals, allegedly. But here we are with having these same issues with humans. So by having on this diet, and then having a good probiotic, and then having a digestive enzyme will help give your body a chance to heal. Now, here's the thing. Here's what's really interesting is the gut, the intestines, they have all these holes in them. Just like imagine a corroded car, and you just have all these holes, and just everything's getting out. So this food is getting out of the gut, out of the intestines, and it's going into your bloodstream, and it's attacking the brain, and it's acting like a drug. That's why so many individuals with special needs, specifically on the spectrum, act like they're drugged, because the food is attacking their brain, because they have gut damage.
Yeah, and there's also been lots of links to stuff like Crohn's disease and things like that, and a lot of scientific studies to these types of disorders as well. I know that and I point this out because I still don't believe that his work is invalid. But Andrew Wakefield did a lot of work on this and was demonized, pretty much. for that work. But I got to tell you that it has been duplicated and replicated by other people doing similar studies. And I do believe that this is a very clear sort of link. We all understand that these genetically modified organisms and these preservatives and these artificial elements that are in the food supply are not healthy. But to actually see a causality link to it, there is scientific proof for this that is largely being ignored, I think, because, if you look in a child's cafeteria and you take a look at the amount of, bread and cheese that's being introduced, and the types of stuff that's being introduced, the artificial dyes that are in the school lunches alone, not to mention just in the general population, as far as the food we eat, most of the time we're not eating food anyway. We're eating food stuff, and the logic that says that, it wouldn't be harmful or they wouldn't call it food if it wasn't food, is one of those really ignorant statements that just makes me shake my head a lot. And I hear people say that, and I don't get it. And I know, and I don't, I don't have a perfect diet, that's for sure. I mean, I'm trying to improve it step by step without, putting my entire system in shock, because I think there is an element to this that is addictive as well. Just for our listeners' benefit, just so everybody knows, if you want to join in on the conversation, I will take some phone calls at 718-717-8296 if you want to join in. If not, I'm quite sure we can continue to just chat with Michelle for the next 50 minutes or so.
I don't shut up. If anybody has any questions and they don't want to come on air, or if they just want to tell me that I'm a quack, you can always send me a message on Facebook, too. I have my computer open in front of me. And if anyone wants to add me on Facebook, I can't promise exciting news, but it is my little corner of the Internet. My last name is spelled M-A-S-C-I-U-L-L-I, Michelle Mashuli, and it's actually hyphenated, Michelle Mashuli Zuniga, but that's probably going to be going away. But I'm the only one on the Internet and the only one you're going to find, so feel free to send me a message, send me a friend request. I don't bite, and if I do, well, I don't have my rabies shot, and it doesn't work anyways, so don't worry about it.
That's right.
So,
this really has nothing to do with like vaccines and everything. It's more towards the food. What I find very frustrating is that it's much easier for, I would say for you, and I don't know your, financial situation or anything like that, but for a single mother or father who's taking care of children, who is on a budget, I'm sure finds it very difficult to buy food that is not processed.
Yeah,
so it becomes very difficult to provide your children with healthier food because it's almost unaffordable.
Yeah, forget single. Remember the meme that went around not too long ago about the rent is too damn high? The food is too damn high anyway, and the more affordable alternatives are usually junk. It is cheaper to be able to feed more than one person, with the crap. And it's almost unaffordable in some cases, depending on your position, like you're saying, right?
Well, right. And I think it all kind of goes hand in hand because, all right, well, you can't afford to feed, your family the fresh vegetables or whatnot, so you use canned. And therefore, they'll get sick, and then they'll go to the doctor, and then you get medicine, and it all is kind of like a vicious circle, which I think is done on purpose, obviously, but it's very frustrating to me when I hear people who just say, well, just don't eat the shit. Well, that's sometimes easier said than done. Not everybody has access to property where they can grow their own vegetables or enough to sustain a family of, say, 4. They live in a concrete jungle. They can only plant fresh vegetables in a few buckets because that's all they're allowed, the space, that they have. So maybe if the food in the grocery store was made a little bit more affordable to everyone, we wouldn't have these problems. But then again, we're always going to have these problems because everything is kind of married, and this one particular agency is sleeping with this agency, so it's never going to be okay.
Yeah, the checks and balances that are supposed to be there to protect us from the harmful elements in the food supply really don't do that. But the price-wise, I'll give you a good hard example. Like when my kids were coming to visit over here, because like I said, I had the two of them with my first wife. They were going to come here, and we looked at, okay, we're going to have to buy some food for when they come, some more food than we would normally have here. Okay, we're looking at a bag of oranges. Okay, which would, allow us, like, say, each of us in the house, 4 of us, to have 2 oranges apiece. Not a bad snack, and that's, relatively healthy, and it's a good thing to have, right? Vitamin C, these are all good things. But here was the trouble, that it was going to cost us more to eat 2 oranges apiece than to prepare, full dinners of this other stuff that's processed, that's got the preservatives.
Hamburger helper or something.
The hamburger helper. Right. The chicken that's really freakish looking, so on and so forth, right? Or the dairy-laden stuff that is pumped full of steroids and dyes and everything else. Because it was simply more affordable to be able to do that, to have a better spread, let's just say, on the food supply for the weekend. You know what I mean? It was hard. We bought the oranges anyway. But it was hard because it was like, well, gee, we're almost giving up dinner to have 2 oranges. You know what I mean? And it was just like, I don't know. It's one of those frustrating things, and I know that's what you're talking about, right?
It just irks the shit out of me.
It's terrible.
The stuff that's bad for you is more accessible.
Oh, yeah. If I can make a few suggestions,
sure.
I know it sounds really hippie of me and hipster or cliche or whatever the hell the term of the week is. The farmers market, local buying clubs. I live in San Antonio, Texas. Here in San Antonio, we have this amazing buying club that's with local farmers where you can get like 20 pounds of organic strawberries for like $15.
Yeah, I was telling you about that here. I was looking into that, and it's really something I want to do. So, if you would tell people more about that, because I'm not that familiar, that would be great. Because
we're just like starting to explore this stuff and learning about these sharing programs through local farmers who have their own situation where they grow things organically and you can buy into their crops, right? But this was hard to find. This took us 2 weeks to even find something that was functional to be able to do this. You know what I'm saying? Well, it probably took longer, right?
Yeah, well, I found it. So
we tracked down a few places that seemed to have this type of thing going on, but then it wasn't going to be organic vegetables, and it was just going to be, stuff that hadn't really been cleaned up and sent to the grocery store yet. There was no guarantee of what type of pesticides they were using and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Is there any? I mean, I don't know if you know of any of this stuff because I never talked to you about it before, but just per se, what would you do if you're in our position and you really don't know where to go for that stuff? How would you go about looking for it?
I'm actually looking for it as we speak right now. There is a great site that gives you all kinds of local farmers, and I got to find it. I apologize. And I have it saved in one of my browsers, and I'll find it. But you can look in your area, and then it'll have a list of local farms, ranches, etc., and you can, you'll find CSAs and whatnot. I'll find it before the end of the show, I promise.
Okay, well,
I stumbled across the program by accident, actually looking for goat's milk for the baby. That's how I found it, where you can get, fresh chicken from the farmer, as opposed to buying what is not looking to me like chicken in the Walmart. I'm sorry, I don't know of any chicken breast that is that size on a chicken that hasn't
They're
been...
bigger than mine. I know.
But I was just going to say. But I was going to say it. Thank you.
And I'm not small-chested, and I'm like, wow.
That is not a chicken. That is all naturally fed.
Chickens are filled with hormones and estrogen.
Right.
Tons of estrogen.
Throw that in there on top of, all the other environmental poisons that we're, even as adults, are eating. It's no wonder everybody's ill.
Okay, guys, I found the site.
Oh, excellent.
It is, and I'm going to give y'all lots of sites before the show's over, and I'm going to give it to the listeners, too. And I may not be associated with these sites, I may be associated with a few, but they're just great information and great resources. But as far as food, it's localharvest.org, and you can find everything. You can find farms, CSAs, farmers markets in your area. And another great option is to buy a cow. Like, get a couple people together and buy a cow together. You would get so much more beef, and it would be grass-fed, and it would actually be cheaper than if you went to the supermarket.
Right.
Yes, that's the thing about these share programs I was talking about. Some of them are for, are for meat and things like that, but a lot of them are for vegetables. But you have to be careful again, because now that website like pretty much says they only put organic farmers on, or are they like all kinds?
It's local. I think it's more of just what is there and what's local, and then it'll have their websites if they have a website. And a lot of farms do have a website, and they'll tell you from there. And what I've seen in the areas I've lived, and again the Texas thing, they'll invite you out there, or they'll tell you, they'll tell you what they have and what they do use and what they don't use.
Right.
Of course, they do, talk about organic here on the site and whatnot. It's not exclusively organic, though.
Well, either way, it's got to be a hell of a lot better option than the stuff that's being, sprayed with viruses in order to kill other viruses and bacteria.
Oh, yeah.
So,
And you're supporting your local farmers.
Just ask the farmer. I mean, honestly, they'll tell you if they're...
That's the other thing, is that supporting the local economy is definitely a preferable thing for many, many other concerns, even outside of your health anyway. So, but I'm really glad that you put that one out there. As we get to at about an hour and 15 on my show, because we only got 45 minutes left, I don't want to completely monopolize the time, although, I do like to talk. Is there any other areas that you want to make sure we get to so we don't, cheat them out, and just get them out in the last 10 minutes? I want to make sure to kind of open the floor up for you and let you kind of go at it now.
I thought that's what I'd been doing.
See, I felt like I was stepping on you a lot here.
No, I feel like that, and I got to kind of hold myself back. I got to be like, down, girl, no, don't get excited. Hold it back.
Well, look at it this way. If we don't cover something on this show, I'll be more than happy to have you on again.
I appreciate it so much. And by the way, I sent a link to you and Kim. It is actually a list. It's about your vaccine requirements. What's great about your state is that you can have a religious or a medical exemption, and religious can simply be, it does not line up with my religious beliefs. Whether you are religious or not, it does not line up with your religious beliefs, and that's it. That's all you have to do. Now, if you live in West Virginia, you're screwed, but don't live in West Virginia. No offense to the listeners in West Virginia.
No, but it allows for that conscientious objector kind of a way of resistance, which is fine by us. So that's good, because there's a lot of technicalities involved here. Where sometimes you have to continuously refile them, like they expire after 6 months in some places. I was looking at, and they expire after 12 months in some places. So really I appreciate that as well, because I was trying to nail that down, and I saw that they were trying to introduce something new about this recently. And Kim has tried to get involved with this discussion group about sort of making your desires known to the professionals that are involved in your particular areas. And they're kind of divvying up delegations and things like this to kind of give a voice, a collective voice to people that don't want to participate in the vaccination programs. I don't want to give details on it because I haven't fully vetted the organization yet, but believe me, as soon as I do, just for my listeners' sake, as soon as I know that it's a solid organization, I'm going to point you guys to that as well. And I know we're a little atypical because, we're a little older than the average, newborn's parents, I think, generally speaking, but the point is we're trying to improve upon, not necessarily all the mistakes we've made in the past, but all of the sort of blind judgments, let's just say, that we've made in the past. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and for you, it's scary because you guys have done this. Y'all have had kids, and the game has changed. I mean, we were just talking about it. In a matter of less than 20 years, we have 20 more vaccines in 2 years for a child. And that's just that. We have GMOs everywhere. There's just so much going on. Another heads up, I added y'all to a group as well. It's a vaccine group, and it's about questioning vaccines. It's not necessarily anti-vaccine. And I'd like your listeners to know that as well, is that, of course, I'm not a doctor, and I'm not you, so I can't make your decision. But what I can do is I can provide information for you to make an informed decision. And that is what we're lacking in this day and age, is we are lacking informed consent, because we are not informed. Our doctors are not informing us because they get kickbacks from the pharmaceutical reps.
Well, right. And I'll also stress that, the things that I'm saying here, I'm obviously not a medical professional nor a scientist, but the idea is that I am attempting to make an informed individual decision. And this is what we're talking about, is trying to make informed individual decisions. And the more that we do that, the more we will come to the better consensus, I believe. So this is really what the discussion is about. Not necessarily that Michelle or anybody else that I've had on here to discuss these kind of issues is the authority. We're simply giving you the information so that you can make these decisions for yourself. And I think that's exactly what we're both trying to say, right?
Yeah, and you know what I tell people, though? I mean, I can say that, and that sounds nice, but I really don't want to see somebody vaccinate, because I feel like the risks outweigh the benefits, or alleged benefits. Mm-hmm. But if someone chooses to vaccinate, or they choose to go down a road that I've informed them about may be harmful, that's all right, because I'll still be here in a couple years, and I'll help them with their child when they get a diagnosis. And it sounds really crappy of me, but I'm advocating for several parents' children now, because they didn't listen to me, and they said, "Hey, Michelle, he stopped talking after he got his MMR." Well, no shit, Sherlock, I told you that.
Right.
And it's really insulting to me, honestly, when someone says, "Oh, I care so much about you, and I see everything that's gone on with V, and you're such a strong mother, and, just build it up. You're such a guy. You're amazing." "Oh, yeah, I just gave my kid the flu shot." What the hell are you doing? You can't say that you support everything I believe in when you go down that road. Anyways, I'm on a tangent. A few sites for everyone to check out. www.nvic.org. That would be the National Vaccine Information Center. And it's very informative, and I feel that it's rather objective, honestly. There's also vaxtruth.org, a little bit more on the anti-side. Safeminds.org.
That's VACS-truth.org, right?
There's a VAC, and then a VACS-truth.org, and then there's a VAX-truth.org.
Oh, okay.
And if anyone in the audience is listening and they've had a vaccine injury, I urge you to contact VAERS, VAERS, and report that vaccine injury, because I'm sure the numbers are not even real, but even still, when you look on there, it's staggering. And you can look on the VAERS site and see what certain lot numbers have caused what reactions and what deaths, And just to go touch base on a vaccine that's a little bit later, I'm just enjoying my time on this one, Gardasil. Oh, Gardasil. That is such a cluster F of a vaccine. There are over 100 different strains of HPV, and Gardasil allegedly protects against 2 of them. Mm-hmm. 2. Now, Texas was the first state to legalize Gardasil, or not legalize, require Gardasil. And now they're trying to have men get it too, which is hilarious, because men aren't even carriers.
Yeah, I've never understood that either with the human papillomavirus, because what do males have any business, requiring that vaccine, even based on their logic for it?
You know how Merck and GlaxoSmithKline are. But there's so many stories of young women becoming paralyzed and dying from Gardasil. And these are 13, 14-year-old girls. and they're still getting HPV. You know, if you don't want to get HPV, use a condom. There you go.
Yeah, stuff we used to do when we were kids.
Or when people say, "Oh, I got to get my kid the chickenpox vaccine. He's going to die from chickenpox." He's going to die from chickenpox. I remember getting chickenpox. And do you know what happened when my son got chickenpox? He got itchy for a week, and then he was over it. He stayed home. He got some calamine lotion, and that was it.
I
Called it a day.
on my forehead from chickenpox, so I mean that's the worst thing that happened. Okay.
Yeah, that's really the worst thing that happens is you might end up with some skin blemishes, you know. But gee, end of the world, right?
I know. I just again benefit risk. I mean, I just don't see. It's not worth the risk to me. But I'm on the other side. So many people have to learn the hard way. You know, it's like the kid touching the stove. That, you know, parents say, okay, well, the kid will learn after they burn themselves. I burned myself. I learned. But I know too many people that have caught on fire, and they're still not learning.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, you know, another weird thing that started to happen, because my oldest was born in 99. And, you know, they brought up this... at that time, they wanted to give them all these pneumonia vaccines, right? I'm sure that's still part of the protocol now, but it seemed very strange to me, right? We didn't have this kind of stuff, and you know, even though I had suffered from pneumonia a couple of times, it was an environmental concern. It wasn't because I was exposed to the disease; it was because I was exposed to a poor environment. This is how I got sick as a kid. Now, I don't understand this, again, because, you know, a well-taken care of, well-housed, well-clothed baby shouldn't require this stuff, in my opinion. I realize that, you know, some kids do get pneumonia, some kids do get ear infections, but this was another weird thing, too, and I don't know if you went through this experience, but it seems to be prevalent to me anyway, that these kids are constantly being diagnosed with ear infections, and therefore being constantly prescribed antibiotics. Symptoms, or have a realistic sort of viewpoint on this stuff, they see some redness in the ears and they throw an antibiotic at them. And this doesn't seem to be very helpful, or you know, or seems quite honestly counterintuitive to building the immunity anyway. I don't know if you have a viewpoint on that, but this is just something that I discovered, you know, earlier on, and I'm actually afraid of again, because I might be confronted by a pediatrician who does the same thing. I can see that I'm going to probably go through a few of them. You know?
You know, I agree. We see eye to eye on that again, and that's actually something, again, that I've recently had to approach. Vincent had a lot of ear infections as a child after his vaccine injury. Prior to, he didn't have a single one. Ear infections and milk allergies and asthma, they all go hand in hand in hand. And the doctor kept on giving him antibiotics. And then I said, look, my son, he has diarrhea. He's getting yeast infections. He would get terrible yeast infections, guys. Like, his bottom would be bleeding because the yeast was overwhelming in his body. And the doctor said, no, he needs an antibiotic. I said, what the hell are you talking about? He's had enough antibiotics. Well, we'll give him another antibiotic for it. So there he is, just getting overwhelmed, and I didn't know. I was a sheep. And still giving me antibiotics. And eventually I said, enough, because the body becomes resistant to antibiotics. The illnesses become resistant to antibiotics. And, I mean, our body is an amazing thing if we treat it correctly. So I think that, you know, that falls in the environmental category. I think the pharmaceuticals are part of it. And the reason I said that I recently had to make a decision regarding that is because out of nowhere, Vincent just completely regressed. He was very violent. He was self-harming. He was picking his arms, and it manifested in this tear. His arm was infected, and it was just horrible. And this isn't like my boy. I have a very loving, sweet boy. Everyone thinks he's an angel, and I just didn't know what was going on. So come to find out, he was sick. He had a terrible ear infection. His arm was infected, and we'd encountered something called PANDAS before. And a lot of people don't know about it. PANDAS is pediatric autoimmune neuropsychiatric disorders associated with strep. I I know, a mouthful.
Wow.
What?
Yeah, you want to say that one more time, just so we make sure everybody heard that.
Pediatric autoimmune neuropsychiatric disorders associated with strep. And it's the strep that you think. And these children get strep, and it stays in their bodies, and it attacks their brain. So they become violent. They become completely different than they typically are. They get tics. They self-harm. And there's, I think, a child is 30% more likely if they have autism to have pandas. Like, it's significant with the spectrum. And anyways, so Vincent hasn't been diagnosed with this, and it's something, unfortunately, now that I'm having to pursue. So in the past, he regressed. He regressed completely. He quit talking again. He almost couldn't walk. He lost all of his abilities, and it was the scariest thing in my life. You know, I lost him once, and then he completely regressed again. And so I took him to the doctor. They said he had strep. They gave him an antibiotic, and a week or two later, he was fine. So recently, about the last month or so, we were going through this again, just attacking me. And so we ended up in the ER because he was hurting himself, and I didn't know what to do. They said he has an ear infection and probably strep. So I had to decide, am I going to give him antibiotics, which tear apart his gut, which make him ill, which give him even worse ear infections, or do I treat this naturally? And at that point, I decided that I had to give him an antibiotic. And a week later, he was fine. My son hasn't hit me in weeks. And I know for the average person, they're like, wow, congratulations. No, he was very violent towards me. So I think this goes to prove that an overuse of antibiotics, if I had done that, if I'd been giving him antibiotics consistently over the years as they would have wanted to, that wouldn't have been effective when it really needed to be.
Right. I'm not saying that. Believe me. Don't let me make.
No. I don't want you to think that I'm over here loving pharma. No, not at all.
Yeah, that was part of what I was going to say, but also I was going to say that it's not as though I believe that antibiotics are completely useless. I mean, truthfully,
overprescribed.
They're overprescribed, yes. Overused. The idea, the concept of prophylactic use of antibiotics has been carried, to an illogical absurdity, and that's what the problem is. And then the residual damage that occurs after that. Because, like you said, it makes the bugs resistant. Whatever the infection is becomes resistant, lays dormant for a while, recurs, represents itself, so on and so on. Not only that, but, these things are harmful if they're constantly being introduced into the body.
Well, I think parents, too, get nervous when their kid has a fever, and they don't realize that that's the body's natural way of fighting off the infection. So you have to let the body have a fever. Don't suppress it.
Yes, Kim, that's another very important aspect. We're bred to think, oh my gosh, he has a fever, there's something wrong. Yeah, your kid's probably a little sick, but a fever means his or her immune system is working, and that's a beautiful thing. A low-grade fever is good. It means your kid is fighting off that illness, and just watch them. Yes, natural immunity. It's amazing. And there's still people that have chickenpox parties. I mean, we're still out here. And, doing basic supplementation can help build that immunity. And even more so for a baby. If mom supplements correctly and eats right and has a good diet, that helps build your child's immune system too. Breastfeeding for the first 2 years will help build an amazing immunity for a baby. And I also have some resources that I'm going to share with you later, Kim. But D3 is an amazing supplement that you can take. Our bodies produce it, but our bodies probably don't produce it enough, and we don't always get enough of it either. Zinc, again, we don't get enough minerals, and vitamin C. You can take an exorbitant amount of vitamin C, and your body will not react negatively to it because you need a lot of vitamin C, and a lot of us are under-supplemented. And
see, doctors many years ago, the old school kind of doctors, I don't know, it seems to me as though after we go through these loop-de-loops of modern pharmacology and everything else, we seem to go back to the old remedies. And I recall even when I was much younger, I was a musician, and I would tour, I'd run myself down, these kinds of things. Doctors were constantly telling me that I should continuously, take as much vitamin C as I could stand. And I would say to them, well, anything too large of an amount is a problem. I mean, if you take too much vitamin E or, vitamin, these different vitamins, you can destroy your skin. It causes ulceration, all this stuff. And more than one of these old-timey kind of doctors looked at me and said, look, you can take all the vitamin C you want. The worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to pee the excess out. That's about it. And it's kind of funny to me because, over the years, there's been all sorts of different wisdom, let's just say, about these kinds of things. But it does seem kind of funny to me that we sort of come cyclical right back to the more old school method of dealing with things. These old school doctors would explain, the use of tea leaves and things like that. They would give you ideas about, taking care of certain illnesses, problems with your skin, or infections or cuts and things with really what were common household items. That's gone now because everything has to come through, your local Rite Aid or drugstore, or, Walmart pharmacy or whatever. Everything has to be bought and paid for through there, And vitamin C is one of those things that just seems like, you're not really able to overdose on it. It doesn't do you any harm, and there's nothing wrong with taking it anyway.
If you take too much, you'll get diarrhea. That's it. Your body will tell you, okay, enough. And that's it. That's really what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But then just those basic supplements I brought up. I mean, take some zinc, take some magnesium. Magnesium will help too. Magnesium also helps you sleep, helps you detox. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you guys have ever taken an Epsom salt bath. It is amazing. It'll help you detox. It'll, in the autism world, we talk about poop a lot because poop tells so much about the body. It'll help regulate you. That's not a taboo subject for me. It'll help regulate you. It'll help you sleep. You'll feel calm, and you'll detox. You'll just feel so much better. Magnesium is amazing. So take an Epsom salt bath, and then eat a pretty decent diet, and it's amazing how well your body will take care of itself. My son has not been vaccinated since he was 16 months old, and he is 6.5, and he has not had a sick visit to the doctor in 2.5 years until we had this flare-up, of which I suspect, honestly, is probably another kid at school was vaccinated and may have shedded. That sounds a little conspiracy theorist, I'm sure, but that he had not been sick in 2 years. Mm. So, I'm doing something right, I guess.
Right. With the Epsom salt bath, what is the ratio?
You can kind of eye it. I usually put 2 cups. I have a pretty significant bath. Start with a cup, and then go from there, and your body will let you know when you feel comfortable. I would do about 2 cups.
What do you feel that's different? Like, is your skin softer and stuff like that? How do you know it worked? Yes.
How do I describe this? You'll sleep easier. You'll feel rested. It helps aching muscles. And it actually says that right there on packages of Epsom salt. It helps relax your muscles. It helps relax your body. I'm not going to say you're going to see the heavy metals leaving from your body. You will feel refreshed, for lack of a better term. Like, you feel so much better. I feel much better, and I have not been doing it lately like I should be. And it helps. It helps me from being sore after the gym, or it helps me, it helps keep me regular, which is kind of gross for my listeners. I'm sorry, guys. But,
part of life, it's okay.
But, again, with autism, that's such an important aspect, too. Like I said, so much of it is rooted in the gut. So that's a big thing in our world. But it's amazing. It really, if nothing else, it'll help you sleep better, Kim. And it will make your back hurt a little bit less, because I'm sure your back, your ankles, and your feet are killing you right now.
No idea. Yeah, you do.
Well, you know what? I was 21, and I was complaining about it at 21. So
Well, people have babies. It's all right. It's almost over.
It's almost over, that's right.
Notice how quiet I am here.
You're smart, Chuck. So what I would, really encourage you to do, Kim, and everyone listening, is, I can understand having a hospital birth, and I will probably do the same, just as a matter of safety. But have a birthing plan. And your birthing plan can be as specific as you want it to be. You can say, I don't want nurses with pink scrubs in my room. That's a little excessive, but what we need to do is we really need to be in charge of our health. And I'm not saying that we all need to go out and play doctor, but we do need to realize that we have the power to choose how we are cared for and who cares for us. So if you don't want your child vaccinated at birth, if you don't want vitamin K, which the body naturally produces and they get from mother's milk, by the way, their body produces vitamin K as it is, then tell them. Make sure it's written down. Make sure every person that you see has a copy of your birthing plan. And if you want kangaroo care in the first hour, then you put that. And they're obligated to follow that. And it's really important that you and everyone realize that we have power over our health.
Right. I saw something about the kangaroo care. I don't know if you saw it with the family from, I believe, Australia.
I did.
The baby, the twin that was born, and they said he wasn't going to make it, and he died.
Mm-hmm.
That was amazing to me, that she brought her baby back, but just by holding him and talking to him. That's incredible.
It's amazing. I am having a delayed kangaroo care. My child now wants to do kangaroo care with me. And I'm a short woman. I'm 5'1", and Vincent is huge. He's 4'2". So you can imagine this boy that's 3/4 my size wanting to do kangaroo care now. So right. That's a funny sight.
Well, and that's a big step too, because I know a lot of autistic children don't like to be touched.
And that's one of the big victories too. And when he was first diagnosed, that he wouldn't hug me. He didn't hug me. He didn't kiss me. He didn't like me at all. And getting to the point where he now tells me, I love you, Mommy, is like the most wonderful thing in the world.
Yeah, it is. It's true.
See, but, regardless of the efforts that you've made on a chemical level, on a dietary level, and everything else, I mean, where it really begins is the fact that, you do love your child, and, loving someone, regardless of how it is they return it to you, is something that that is extremely valuable, and is one of those things that I just don't see enough of, I would say, in the world around me anymore. It seems as though a lot of mothers are quite burdened by their children and are quite neglectful, and I'm really, really happy that you've been on my show tonight. Because you know what, bottom line here, take a look at all the stuff that Michelle's talking about. I'm going to do that as well. I'm going to try and educate myself more and more about these things, like I said, to sort of improve on the things that I've done in the past, to do better as I go forward. But, regardless of all that, if you don't begin with that connection from your side of things, not just from your child's side, I mean, if you don't have that unconditional love for your child to begin with, what hope is there if there is a problem like this, and what hope is there for their future at all? And I know that, that, as you said, your son's future is not as bright as you wanted it to be, when he was on his way into this world, when he was first in this world. But regardless of what has happened in the interim, he has a chance because of you, because of your efforts, and never ever forget that, regardless of what it is that you succeed at or fail at when it comes to this stuff, Michelle. I just wanted to say that. I don't know why I was inspired to say that, but I wanted to make sure I said it.
I really appreciate it. And I feel like I need to say too that I don't believe that shit that psychologist said. Vincent's neurologist also said that he would never speak and I should have him institutionalized. So my son now reads. He can write his name. He can write sentences. And I truly believe that there are inaccuracies in standardized testing. So, my son's not going to work at McDonald's. I can tell you that. And not putting down anyone that does, but that's not going to be his final stop in his career. So I really do believe that he will recover. He may still have tendencies and issues, but I truly believe that he can overcome these things. So let's go with that. On that note, a few more sites that I'd love to share with you guys. If you do have on the spectrum, ADHD, PDD-NOS, ODD, they're all intermingled. TACANOW.org, TACANOW.org. Amazing resource, and that's actually a site I am a part of. I'm a parent mentor there, so I talk to other parents that was in my position that just said, okay, I have an autistic kid, now what? And they have so many resources. Like Kim was saying, it's hard to eat well on a budget. I don't want to talk about how much I spend on food because it's absurd. Now, TACA has great resources. They have information. They have your parent mentors. They have all kinds of things from methylation to diet. And trust me, there's so much more that we can talk about, guys. But they have a resource on there that you can feed a family of 4, gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free, for under $400 a month. So when a family tells me we can't do gluten-free, we don't have enough, yes, you can. You spend $400, $350 I think is what it is, and they have that. In addition, if someone has a child and they're thinking about going down the biomed road and they're thinking about supplementation and want to go down there, GenerationRescue.org. They have amazing scholarships available that will pay for you to see an alternative doctor and pay for your child's supplements. And this is thousands upon thousands of dollars, trust me. And definitely take advantage of that. That is actually Jenny McCarthy's foundation, and anybody can talk trash all they want, but she's paying for kids to go to the doctor and to get better. So I can't talk trash about someone giving back and helping others.
I actually liked her books.
I've met her several times, and she's charismatic, and she's encouraging, and she's great. And, someone gave me her book. Actually, my friend David gave me her book. He said, hey, I thought you might like this. And I read it, and I said, maybe she's onto something. And it kind of took me down the road of where I am now. Another great community, great site, ThinkingMomsRevolution.com. This is a group of women and a few men all over the country, all over the world, and we all have similar stories. We all have children, and we're kind of taking back their health. And it's an amazing group of women, and they recently started a new foundation as well, a nonprofit, and they're going to be giving scholarships as well. And the thing about the autism community and the special needs community is we realize that you can make a 6-figure income and still be poor. So, definitely take advantage of this stuff. One more site, and I'll leave y'all alone with my website, naturalnews.com, and this is for everybody. Take charge of your health, take charge of your body. There's so many things you can learn from that site regarding your own health and taking care of your child. There's always something new, and I definitely suggest y'all to check that one out. Now, I did want to touch on one more thing you were talking about, Chuck, is
Sure.
You brought up Dr. Andy Wakefield. Dr.
Right.
Andy Wakefield has been given so much crap over the years, and a lot of people don't understand who he is or what he does. I've met him several times. I'm supposed to have lunch with him and his wife this month. Amazing people. Now, he's a gastroenterologist. So what he studied was the prevalence of measles in the gut of autistic children. So he said, the Lancet paper said, yes, I did find measles in the gut of these children. That's what he said. Since then, he's been crucified and basically became a martyr for the cause. He has no connection to autism whatsoever. He had nothing to gain. He doesn't have an autistic kid. He doesn't have an autistic nephew. There's no one in his family with autism. But now he and his wife have dedicated their lives to autism. They actually live in Austin, Texas, and they are working on a compound that encourages independent living for autistic individuals on a more severe scale. So that's a very encouraging and amazing opportunity for individuals. So, anyways, on that note, you're right. His work has been proved over and over and over again. But I feel bad for this guy because he was demonized for kind of speaking out.
And that's the thing that struck me is that he was studying it from his field of research, and it seemed entirely legitimate to me, and I just saw it as being completely demonized, and I couldn't understand why he was under attack. Look, if you prove that the Earth is round, okay, and you give your proofs, you're a scientist. And a doctor being a scientist, I know sounds a little strange to some people, but, especially because a lot of people rant very much against, doctors in general, but not all of them are out to do harm, And I would love to have a conversation with him sometime, just based on the stuff I've read about him, but I couldn't understand the backlash from his research. And as I said before, it's been verified by others. It's not as though he was like the lone individual coming out. He wasn't the, I hate to use the term lone nut, but he wasn't the lone nut making these statements. There were other, gastroenterologists who were agreeing with his findings. And it all got kind of shut down, and I couldn't understand it at all. And you're right, he didn't have any sort of dog in the fight at the time. It's not like it was a personal issue for him exactly, but that is of interest to me that they made it into a personal issue for him, and he's, still furthering, the good end of his work there by running that facility and all that. That's really fascinating. I'm glad you added that in as well.
And actually, if anyone's interested in that, it's called the Autism Trust, and it's based out of Austin, and he still does educational. He speaks at autism conferences and organizations all the time, and he's not the only gastroenterologist that has concluded that vaccination does harm the gut and can cause autism effects. There's people in the community that say autism is not an actual diagnosis, but rather a collection of medical issues, which is a lot of people say is inflammation of the body. And it is. A lot of children have inflammation of the brain after they're vaccinated. Look at pictures of my kid. He had a huge head. Huge. And a lot of people with vaccine injuries have noticed the swelling of the head, of the brain. So, here's that note. I'm trying to think if I forgot anything, because I could talk forever, guys.
Yeah, well, we're actually down to the last, looks like 6-7 minutes here, so, if there is any parting sort of thing you want to get in there, please, by all means, go right ahead.
Okay, I covered most of what I wanted to, honestly.
See, that's what I wanted to make sure we did this time, Michelle, because, when you came on just, on that show last week, you didn't really have enough time, but I recognized right away that, what you were talking about, was a heartfelt issue, was a real thing, and could be educational for me. And believe it, you pointed me in a direction that's going to help me personally. So even if nobody listening to this got anything out of it, at least we did.
Well, that's what matters, and what I tell people all the time is if I can help one person, one child, if I can just lower the number by one, then I've done enough. Then I've done what I needed to do. Again, I invite all of your listeners to message me, add me on Facebook anytime. Last name again is MASCIULLI. Autism, special education, I do that as well. Health in general, vaccines, hate mail, I take it all. We didn't talk about formula. We barely talked about formula.
We didn't get into that at all.
No, gosh.
If you want to come back on, I'd be more than happy to do this again, and we could just talk about, baby stuff. We could talk about the formula, the toys, the stuff to promote, neurological development, because as I said before, when your baby's born, their neurological development has not ended. Let's not forget that. So
that's a great point. And the milestones. So many of us don't know the milestones that we're supposed to be watching out for.
Yeah, if you want, we could do a show entirely on that.
if you would like to listen to that, I'd be more than willing. If your listeners would like to put up with me again, one or two things are going to happen. Either the women are going to be running to the husbands and wanting babies, or the men are going to be like, turn this off.
Well, either way, you know what? I don't have a problem because it's all good information, and it's the type of thing that I like to present. And you know, if nothing else, again, we presented your story and your viewpoints, and some stuff that I agree with you on, obviously, and some more things that I'm going to have to look into. So, you know, even if this wasn't particularly entertaining for some of my regular listeners, I got to tell you, it was definitely informative and something that added something positive to the discussion. You know, a lot of times I focus on politics and history and the problems in the world, but you know what? If we don't begin to dissect these issues that are affecting the next generation, you know, there is going to be no future to have these discussions about anymore. So it's one of those core issues that needs to be addressed. And you know, again, I'm really glad. And the little Skype message that I got about no, I don't have her on here because her name ends with a vowel just like mine. But that's not what's going on here. She's not related to me in any way. I met her just last week on the show.
We Italians have to stick together, so
this we have to do because that could be a whole show in and of itself.
Well, the way we actually I stumbled onto your show is I was a part of the March Against Monsanto here in San Antonio, and I think Vincent said, hey, you know, we need some people on the show, and I'm like, and everybody in the group already knew Michelle talks and she won't shut up, so go ahead, go on there whenever we need you to. And since then, I've actually had a few invites to go to a few shows and in the circles, and I'm kind of pleasantly surprised, and there's even talks about maybe me someday getting the show, and I'm just like, wow, never expected it. But so to your listeners, don't worry. I also talk about chemtrails and Monsanto and Obama. We talk about all that stuff. It's okay. I'm more than just vaccines, but it's all connected.
I know it. I'll tell you what, if you don't wind up getting your own show, you're always welcome on mine. So, you know, anytime you let me know if you've got a particular issue or something's going on, or you want to focus on something that's current, or you just have a collection of gripes, you can come on here and just yell about them. I'll be happy to hear it.
Oh, I'm really good at bitching.
And Chuck edits himself. All right. So.
Well, thank you, Michelle. And Vincent's very lucky to have you as his mama.
Well, thank you so much. And I'm going to be in contact with you guys. I have you on Facebook. I'm going to message you. I have a bunch of information. You know, we talked about, in private, we were talking about how to, you know, stimulate milk growth and things like that. And I definitely have resources I want to send y'all's way so you can make an informed decision. And I hope that your listeners reach out to me as well, or at least use Google, because you can find anything on Google. And just look at these things. Look at vaccines. Look at formula. Look at the GMOs in your formula. Learn about breastfeeding, extended breastfeeding. Look at cesareans, because we all do it now. This is the cool thing. I didn't talk about that. Doctors are now scheduling cesareans because it's easier than having a typical vaginal birth. And moms are like, yeah, I'm just going to get them cut out so I don't ruin my hoo-ha. No, don't do that. Because then you have a really big scar anyways. But
Exactly.
But there, like I discussed, there are health benefits to doing that. I gave a ton of organizations and links, and immunity, building your immune system. There's just so much that can be done, and I hope that everyone learned something, or at least they're going to look up and see if I'm crazy, and then they'll learn something.
Right. Plus, there's also the live chat room, which goes on UCY.tv, which you can find on our website.
Why did I miss that? I should have been there.
Well, you can go in, you know what? You can go in anytime, actually. It's 24 hours a day, no matter what show is running. If you go on during my show and you stick around for Vince, who's up.
Webcam, microphone up close.
Webcam, microphone up close.
At the age of 19 in 1962, she was
See, but I have the files. You know, I read this stuff at the National Archives, and I read these other things. I said to myself, how can that be possible? The brain, you know, pistols and fondle slab of choice. I don't know when that was. It doesn't really matter. Internet, professional wrestlers, and not Jesse Ventura style. It doesn't matter where the information comes from as long as it's real. It doesn't. It's hard to get real information because seriously, they don't want you to have